I guess you ain't from around here. Yeah, I guess you ain't from around here. Yeah, look at what we did in the past year. Yeah, a lot of green like a pasture, a lot of busted like a pastor. Yeah, enjoy it while I'm still here. I've been on the up and disappeared like the rapture. No mad raps in the cheap shore. I'm just shopping in my Sears. I ain't no soothsayer, just a truth seeker, blue tweaker. Might just make a meal while I'm getting meeker. Might just make a meal while I'm getting meeker. Do I sound clear? Can you hear the soothing timbre in your ear? Look at what we did in the past year. Yeah.
Was the last episode? Sorry, was the last episode?
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to EBS&FLOW. That's Esoteric Bible Study for Love of Wisdom. I'm Danny Unaki Dan, and I am here today with the beautiful Morgan B. What's up, Morgan?
Hello, hello.
Also
I'm
here
glad
with
to
us
be
today
here. Thank you, guys.
is Nomad. What's up, Nomad?
Peace, everyone. Glad to be here.
Joshua the Branch may show up a little bit later. We'll see. But he's out partying like an animal. So we are joined today on random occasion. What's it called? Spontaneous occasion, I guess is more apropos. From the chat, just brought him in. PK, how's it going?
Hey, glad to be here. And it was quite random. Just saw what Nomad in the chat. He's like, I'm off to Esoteric Bible Study. I'm like, PM him real quick. Where's that? What's that? So here I am.
Excellent, man. Well, good to have you
Glad
here.
you're here.
We're
Yeah.
glad to have you.
It's a little bit different for us, but we accept that. We like it. We like a different voice. And just a little bit about yourself, like as far as religion and stuff like that. What is your kind of take on religion, or a denomination? What do you subscribe to, or your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was raised Methodist and grew up with that, kind of more or less forced to go to church until I was maybe about 15 or 16. And then it was kind of like, hey, do you want to go? And, sometimes I'd say yes, sometimes I'd say no. That was cool. Then kind of going on from there, I pretty much stopped going to church. I felt like something, I don't know, was off with it. I felt like it was fake, to be honest. Just the whole connection there and how, like, they talk about the Bible and it was kind of like they were literalists. And I'm like, you guys really think some guy was in a fish and like all these stories? I'm like, you think someone put all these animals on? It never made sense to me. And, it was hard to get answers to real questions like that in church. And I don't know if that's a denominational thing or I feel like that might be the same kind of across the board. So anyway, fell off from that, but then come COVID, I think it was a blessing for so many reasons, because it kind of, my eyes were squinted open, and then that shit opened my eyes wide open and kind of dove into everything, kind of found my spiritual path. I'd say as far as Christianity goes, I think it's it was the religion I was raised in, probably certainly the most familiar with, but I like to view all different types of religions. I believe the Bible is an exceptionally written book, although I do have a feeling it's been messed with a ton of times, and I have reasons for that. I also like to look into, as far as when I'm studying the Bible, I like to look at the other translations. I like to look at the Hebrew. I like to look at the Greek, and that's all also, take it for what it is sort of thing, because there's a whole conspiracy you could get in, to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, was it written in Hebrew first, or was it written in Greek? Some people say it was written in Greek. I know the main thing is, like, the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, New in Greek, right? That's the accepted story of it. But anyway, I found Marty Leeds a long time ago,
Mm-hmm.
so I like got into him, and he shared some great things, back in the day when he had his website and bunch of older videos and stuff like that. So that kind of opened my eyes to the whole gematria stuff and
Yeah, right
and
on.
but yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell.
Cool. Well, all of us pretty much use a different Bible on here, and we go over the discrepancies in words. That's relatively part of the show when we do each episode. Yeah, we talk about all different mythologies and all different religions and incorporated that all into the study and into the Bible itself and the descriptions that it's giving us to congeal it, I guess, with the rest of what's going on in the ancient world. So today we are on Genesis chapter 9, and I have a screen view here if you guys don't. This is from King James, and I'll read up to number 14, and then you guys can take over from there if you like. But we're just going to read this covenant of the rainbow part. And it says, "And God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things. But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man, and at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made he man. And you be fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. And God spake unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, And I, behold, I establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of the covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth that the bow shall be seen in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh, and the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, This is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. So I'm going to stop there, and let's kind of just go over that first half, chapter 9. Because then next it gets into Noah's sons, and then Noah's shame and Canaan's curse. And I kind of think this deals more with the be fruitful and multiply, the eating of meat, um, which I thought was interesting because seemingly in the beginning of Genesis is kind of more vegetarian, like, meat seems a little bit more off the table. But here then it's like, I'm giving you meat to eat also. But then it goes on to say, but surely your blood of your lives will I require, not that part, but flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. So I get a little confused there. So if any of you could help me flesh that out a bit.
Well, I think what he's saying is like don't eat the blood, right? So like
Don't.
a lot of people like a lot of people like a bloody steak, right? So maybe that's frowned upon, I guess. I just wanted to point out that it's in this passage as it's saying God, it's talking about the Elohim. So just so we're because that's one thing about the Bible. That's why I like to use the Young Literal Translation. Is like a lot of times they generalize the Lord
Thank
and God when
you.
these are titles. So I like to know like who are we actually talking about, right? And so
And
theoretically, this is a plural God. We're perhaps talking about multiple entities that are working in unison. And I think when it was originally talking about vegetables, I was just about to look this up. It might have been Jehovah who was speaking. And so again, this is why I like to look at the different fruits of these spirits. So I'm gonna look that up, but Morgan has something to add.
Yeah.
this is actually a very good. Thank you for bringing that up because it led me into what I was going to try to say. And that is the old covenant versus the new covenant, which is like a huge thing in Christianity, is deciding that Adam's blood is not the same as physical Israel. So it's like the division line between Israel as a nation, like sharing the same blood, versus Israel as like a nation state, like where you had been fruitful, multiplied without, tilled the fucking soil everywhere, you know what they say, and then, bring about an entire nation of Israel, not just of your own blood. Like, so basically, you can go have sex with other people now. It's like part of, it's called dispensationalism in Christianity. And there's three main key points to that as well when it comes to that. There's a distinct difference between Israel and the church. So like the blood of Christ versus the Israel as a church. The Old Testament taken as literal. It should be taken as literal. And the purpose of God is for the sake of the glory of God. So yeah, it brings about a lot of different types of sex when it comes to Christianity, just from this one passage alone, when it comes to the old covenant versus the new covenant. So I wanted to point that out.
Awesome. I've never
Well,
heard
yeah, and
dispensationalism before. So thank you.
yeah, great point, Morgan. And then I also wanted to just clarify what I was saying. So I went to Genesis 3 where it's talking about you can eat all of the fruit and talks about the garden, etc. And it is Jehovah. So in verse Genesis 3:8, for example, and they hear the sound of Jehovah God walking up and down in the garden at the breeze of the day, and the man and his wife hide themselves from the face of Jehovah, God in the midst of the trees of the garden. And then even up above it's talking about Jehovah. So this whole early chapter here when we're in the garden, it's Jehovah essentially. And so again, just looking at that difference of like Elohim versus Jehovah. So if we go back to Genesis 9 when it's talking about God, and if we look at the original Hebrew, verse 8 you said? Or
I said Genesis 8, the one before this, when you got to the top of the mountain and burned the flesh.
Right. Well, just because we're in Genesis 9 though, right? So just based off of what we're reading, I wanted to point out that when it's saying, and God saith, this is a token of the covenant and all of this. If we look at the original Hebrew here, it says it's the Elohim.
It does say that, and it also kind of like mentions that not quite, but it seems as if he's doing like a trial and error, or it's multiple people, or that's why there's a huge disagreement between the churches on this one topic alone, because it is Elohim versus Yahweh. Not versus, but it's like these are distinct different voices talking or
Right.
whatever.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
also I want to mention, well, I guess we're not in, well, yeah. Okay. So when in Genesis 1:28, it said, now Elohim needed to instill fear into the animal kingdom to ensure man's survival. At the time, animals would have multiplied quicker than man would have quickly exterminated them. So, it's the trickle down. So the fall, he gave Adam government over all things living. On this one, when we fell again and started over again, the governance that was put into place, domesticated cattle didn't, like domesticated animals didn't have that fear put into them that the animals did. Does that make sense? So the first time, we had dominion over all animals. So possibly could like make them do things for us telepathically. Who knows? We had dominion over all things. We lost that. And then we just keep losing it. So
We got kicked from the garden.
Yeah. And then fear entered the equation, and then we started sort of losing that trust relationship we had with the animals. That's kind of how I see it. It's like where the serpent is going to bite the heel, right? Like and the serpent represents the beast system. And so we're sort of always in that turmoil with the animal kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
So now we should be like stewards. So we
right
turn into like stewards of animals versus
which is what we were always supposed to be, like, and that's why my whole thing is trying to get back to the garden and how to live like it was, how God's perfect plan was, because I think that is our role. And I feel that like when I'm taking care of the land, there's like an energy there that is really unmatched, and so I think there's something to that for sure. What do you think about all this, PK?
Yeah, jump
But
in.
yeah, I heard you mention a transliteration. Is that what you're looking at? Just one thing I have here is I'm not seeing in the 8th verse. I still see Elohim in mine. I'm not seeing the YHVH, which is typically what you'll see translated as Jehovah.
I was saying Jehovah is in chapter 3. So earlier in Genesis, when we're before sort of the fall. And I think even Elohim is mentioned in early Genesis too. But when we're talking about the fruit and the trees and all that, it was Jehovah. And there's one verse that I'll try to find where it's actually saying like, these are the foods to eat, the herbs and the grass and all that.
So you're saying that in this part, it's saying that Elohim is saying eat the flesh?
Yeah,
he's saying he's saying don't eat the flesh. Elohim is advising against eating flesh because it is his flesh for when we die.
No,
our blood is for him.
I think it's the opposite. So the Elohim is saying you can now eat the meats essentially, but don't eat the blood.
That's exactly what and because we fell again. Right. So this is our third time. We've fallen 3 times, guys. Thus far.
Yeah, I'm gonna read this again because I think this is like I want to try to understand it more because it seems like we're all on.
And I want to read the transliteration when you're done. What I have, which is like the word for word Hebrew. And again, I don't know how accurate it is, but it's super interesting. But yeah.
Let me read this again, and I'm going to read a little bit faster. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon. So that means animals are going to be in fear of humans now. And upon every fowl of the air, upon all moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Means like we are the top of the food chain now. That's kind of how I take that. Into your hand are they delivered. They're all for you to use and do what you want with. So far, every morning thing, every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. Even as the green herb, I have given you all these things. So that we're all pretty much cool on. But this part, but flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. Does that mean not to eat of living things, or not to eat of it while it's alive? Only after you kill it can you eat it? Is that
or maybe after it's already, because see, here's my whole thing, as like a vegan, when I look at, if there was, I'm not saying it's wrong to eat meat necessarily, but I think if you were to do it in my ideal world, it would be like a full circle system where, like, I've probably given this example before, but like in Alaska, when somebody hits a moose, there's a whole line of people waiting to go get that moose and like make sure it doesn't go to waste, right?
right?
And so I think perhaps it could be something like that. And I think there is maybe something important about the blood itself, which we're not supposed to actually eat. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
I'm going to keep going, because then it says, and surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man, and at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man.
Yep.
That sounds like Grim Reaper-ish to me.
Yes, his, not ours.
Yeah, we're just we're renting these bodies. Don't let me spill anything on it, okay?
But we are, though. And we actually are.
In spiritual
blessing.
sense, I mean, we're spirits inhabiting bodies in that sense, and these are just here temporarily, but our spirit is eternal, because energy is energy, right? Can't be created or destroyed.
How do you think that energy is transferred? I think maybe blood is like the plasma, or like mercurial, like the spiritual aspect, or part of it, or our thought process, at least. Like blood has a lot to do with more than we give it credit for. I think that's blood is life.
I think that's a very good point about like the plasma and blood and the life force and blood. And like, where does your spirit actually reside? Does it reside in your blood cells, or in your blood, or is it in your brain? Or, some people, a lot of people ask, like, where is the seat of God, or where's the seat of consciousness? And I think there's been some science about blood and plasma and blood, and maybe the unification of all that blood in your body, the movement of it is what creates the spirit in some form or fashion. I'm not 100% sure, but it's an interesting talk.
Maybe it helps.
I knew more.
Maybe it helps the spirit sort of inhabit the body. Like the blood is what helps the spirit inhabit the body, because I've had out of body experiences where it's very much like my spirit, my consciousness is outside of my body and still thriving, right? So I don't think that it's necessarily that the blood is what allows it to exist, but perhaps it's what allows the body to inhabit it, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, blood's like, I kind of think of it like the in alchemical terms, the mercury.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's the messenger. It's the
movement.
Kind of.
What do you think of when you think of the lovers card? It has
tarot.
2 people. Well, yeah, but it's like an agreement with the 2 serpents around the staff. It is not only a just like contract agreement with someone. It is a relational agreement. It's a blood contract. It is it's more than just saying, like, it's it's more than the Two of Cups, if that makes any sense. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a
Tarot's not my
serious
strong suit.
relationship.
Serious maybe that's like the whole idea of blood brothers and poking your finger and touching blood with each other.
The whole Mount Herman.
Combining your spirits. I don't know. It's very interesting.
The whole Mount Herman event.
Yeah, it's number 6. So you got six, right? It's the 5 is the pent,
mm-hmm.
and then the 6 right after it, and the Rider Waite has the sun in the middle, and then you have the male and female, and then a mountain. And I'm gonna sound like Mario and Lucas, LC King, but you got a mountain in the middle, you got man and woman on the side. You could see that maybe that's the axis, and then you have the sun and moon going around them. Sun and moon being your masculine and feminine energy, if you will, depicted by male and female humans.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Mount Meru could be your pineal gland, and it could be your left and right brain in that sense.
Oh, there you go.
It's a mutual agreement that has more than just a relational, like a thing about it. Like it's like, marriage. Okay, well, we're going down for this. Yeah, it's like, is it a love story?
What do you guys think? How does this relate to like a blood sacrifice, right? So is there something to that of like, that's what allows the spirits to sort of connect with this realm when the blood is shed? And that's why we hear a lot of stories about like ghosts and, spirits and things happening around death.
Well, the ground has to be fed after it's been fed.
The weird thing about ghosts
feeds you feed the ground.
is that usually ghosts occur from some type of tragic event. They're shot or suicide or they die unexpectedly, car crashes, those types of things is usually what produces like ghosts in the sense that we know it. Sacrifices, on the other hand, are more in the sense of like you're sacrificing that animal or in some cases humans for their blood to be shed for God and or whatever gods it is that it's being shed for, because even in Christianity or old school Christianity, in the Middle East, they still sacrifice sheep or goats or whatnot to the gods, or to God. So why is right here it says that all your blood is mine and all the animals' bloods are mine too. So it's very interesting when we get into,
because Cain killed Abel.
Right. Yeah, he did. Was that a sacrifice to God?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think because
that was his sacrifice. That was what he did.
Once you read on, right, it's talking about like if a man kills a man, like his life is also required. It's essentially what he's saying is God is within us all. God is within the blood. The blood is the messenger. The blood is the conduit. And so I think the point here is to understand that and understand that everything around us that is living, that has blood, is part of God in a way.
So does that mean we have to wait for a deer to die on its own in the forest before we're supposed to eat it?
I don't know.
I don't know. I think you need to ask God about that one. Pray on it. I don't know if it's that cut and dry.
So one quick thing I'd like to say about the word sacrifice. I feel like many of these words that have come down, right? Sacrifice seems like it's an old word. Like it's been around. You could probably pull any dictionary, the oldest dictionary you could find, probably sacrifices in that word or in that dictionary. I just wonder though, if you look at the etymology of sacrifice, right? It's pretty, you see sacred there, and it's like, okay, you get all that
raw.
And we have this idea we have, yeah, Rob, we have this idea in our head that sacrifice, means like slitting the throat of a lamb and like actually doing some sort of like ritual sacrifice like that. And I just wonder if our ancestors, these old authors, use that word differently. Because you could think of it like, take a woman's cycle every month. She sacrifices her essence. It's not by choice. It's nature. It happens. So that's like a blood sacrifice every month, that the woman gives back to the earth. And that's just, I'm just pointing out that that's a way to use the word sacrifice that perhaps we've come so far away from, that now we look at it as killing animals and stuff like that.
I would agree with that.
That was a good point.
Because, like, I think sometimes like the whole idea of like, I guess harvest in a way is once you harvest everything, you kind of all share what you have. You don't just take it all for yourself. You're supposed to share it because you have the abundance. And I think sacrifice of the same way is like if you're raising cattle or you're raising sheep, you want to sacrifice one because you don't want all of them to die. So you're saying like, look, I have an abundance, but I'm giving some to you. So because I understand like it can't all be for me. So here's your sacrifice to the Lord who gave me this flock this year, and now this is yours and the rest is for me, or the rest is for me to share or sell or whatnot. I think that's very interesting. I feel the same way about the word rape. I think rape back then was used in a different way also. And today we use it in a completely different way. But because the gods were often raping people, but I think that was more of like a spiritual thing. I think in a lot of ways to be raped by God was a good thing, or they wanted that.
Demonic possession.
No, I don't think
Incubus,
it's demonic possession.
Incubus, succubus, weird
All
type
these
of
demons
shit.
and cults and sacrifices with you, woman.
Being raped, maybe it means like a not consensual overcoming.
Well, Ra's in the name again, right? It's first two letters.
Right.
So there's something spiritual, I would say, about it, or something that represents God. Because Ra appears in sacrifice and all these different words, and it's usually something that's pertaining to the Lord or the God or and whatever, and any religion too, by the way, not just in one. So
real quick, I wanted to touch on the sort of etymology of the word sacrifice. So looking at the Hebrew word, it's zabak, and the root of that word, if we look at the root of that word, it essentially is saying to offer or to kill or to slay. So there obviously it could be used in multiple ways, but it's actually used as offer more than it is kill or slay. So really it could just be to offer something, right? Like we're saying, being
offering.
selfless, that act of being, if it won't flow through you, it won't flow to you kind of thing. Like if you're just going to hoard everything up, that's not how our system is meant. Like is there such thing as stillness? It seems like everything is in movement in one way, shape, or form. It's actually harder to try to stop having any thoughts, and that's harder than just letting your thoughts flow, right? So I think there's something to that, and I think that's why the story of Christ is so powerful, because he showed us how to live that. And not only did he show us, but he taught us by just asking questions and making us think for ourselves.
Yeah, I want to add too, like nature itself takes away and gives, right? So living within that nature cycle, if you're domesticating animals, those animals are no longer going to be in that natural cycle because you're domesticating them. So committing the sacrifice is a way of, I think, almost like bringing them back to nature or bringing it back to nature, because if you're there in the wild, they're probably gonna, all 20 say of your sheep are probably not gonna live past this age, and a few of them are gonna die. So it's a way of staying in that cycle by sacrificing one of them. Does that make sense? I wonder if they sacrificed more than one too, if there was multiple sacrifices of like a herd or whatnot, or a flock, or like you have 20 pigs and you sacrifice two. Is there like some type of formula for how many you have to sacrifice based on how many you have, or anything like that? You know what I mean?
So this reminds me, I have a 1737. I found this 1737 PDF of it's like a dictionary encyclopedia and something to do with etymology. But holy crap, the word Holocaust, like Holocaust, what we think of, with the Jews in Nazi Germany, this was a 1737 definition, and has a complete different, like if you look up Wikipedia and stuff, you'll see it say that it comes from a word. The etymology of it is like to burn in a sacrificial way. And so it was something before it was what it is now. And what you're describing and asking, Dan, is crazy. This detailed explanation of slaughtering 27 bull, or I forget the numbers. 27's kind of
it's in Leviticus somewhere.
Does it say how many? Okay.
Oh,
It has
gives
a
you,
list of how much they would do, when they would do it. Yeah. It goes into super detail.
Yeah, and again, the
Holocaust was
Elohim
bread too, by the way. Isn't Holocaust bread?
I haven't heard that one.
Or some type of festival? Then they have like a Holocaust. Was it that like a festival?
No, but it was like it was something that they went through often. It was a familiar thing. And it's not only a familiar thing for Jews, it's a familiar thing for every ethnic race.
Was it like the winter?
Everyone has gone through a Holocaust.
I'm just saying they used it for a different type of word. They used it. I thought it meant like bread, like challah. Challah is a bread. I thought it was called like Holocaust, or there was like a festival of bread that was called Holocaust or something to that effect, or maybe it had to do with a winter solstice type of thing where they would have like a Holocaust festival where they would, sacrifice something or whatever and then have the festival. I just thought there was a different, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I've heard that before.
Heavy Metal Holocaust Festival 1981.
I don't think that's what I meant. Like because Pentecost, right, is a festival of 5, right, of Pentitude. It's a festival of, I'm not really sure what Pentecost is. Help me out here, Nomad.
I don't know.
It's a it's a religious sect that actually goes more in line with the old covenant versus the new covenant.
Pentecost is a Christian holiday which takes place on the 50th day, the 7th Sunday after Easter Sunday. It commemorates the descent of the Holy Spirit upon the apostles and other followers of Jesus Christ while they were in Jerusalem celebrating.
There you go.
So essentially celebrating the Holy Spirit.
So what is the Holocaust? Is the Holocaust a winter festival?
No, the Holocaust is like a fucking cost of your damn life.
Hey, I'll be happy to read this thing for you guys. I think it's super interesting. And I'm almost...
Why don't you just read the definition for
us? Sorry, I'm getting there. Give me a second. I'm on
real quick while you're looking for that.
Yeah.
So again, I wanted to bring out, so a lot of these stories and these things we're being told are by the Elohim, which can mean rulers, judges, divine ones, angels, or lowercase gods.
There you
So
go.
I'm just
Watchers.
curious on like what you guys think about that. Like, are these like entities that we're wanting sacrifices for some other reason other than like is sacrificing animals, in your opinion, what the Most High really wanted?
Nomad. How are you going to go from that to sacrificing animals?
Well, because that's what the Elohim, right, is sort of what we're
There we
talking
go.
about.
Have you ever
The
heard Elohim
line.
translated as powers? I didn't hear you mention powers. Okay.
No, I
didn't
don't
hear
think
you.
I've heard
I
that
didn't
one.
hear you mention powers in there, and that's what I have in my literal Greek translation. Is what I've heard some Hebrews, say.
Yeah,
Some
that could
Jews
definitely
say
be
that
like
it was
rulers.
powers.
So like
Yeah.
the kings or
Yeah.
like the lowercase gods or like the trickster gods.
the forces of this
Yeah.
realm. Like not as in kings or in entities, but talking about the forces, things that make things happen here. And in a sense, things here die. Like life sustains life, or in other words, death sustains life. For something to live, something has to die. That's just like
that's
where we are.
Kind of what I was talking about.
It's
of
true.
Keeping that nature cycle alive. If you're domesticating, that's no longer alive. So you have to sacrifice in order to keep that kind of whole system going.
It does seem like there's some consciousness or intelligence behind these stories. So that could just be us sort of, again, making up stories to better understand and be able to remember and to be able to spread the information, right? Or do you guys think, so that's like the one option, or it could be an actual intelligent power or force. If you guys had to guess, what would you say?
I have in my notes, it says, God said to Noah and his sons, and I'm like, well, who's authoring this? Like who said that God said this? So, I mean, honestly, Noah, because when God shut the door on Noah after the flood, Noah could have come here and been like, oh shit, I am God now. And literally, went on and taught people how to be gods. I mean,
but he wasn't claiming to be God. He was sort of doing the opposite, right?
Well, he was the only person with the knowledge.
Right. And so we have all these stories that were passed on audibly, or so we're told. And then I think people would say that Moses sort of wrote down and scribed it, right? And so Moses would be the person saying or writing it down, at least, that God said that. However, he would have probably heard the stories from Egyptians, from the Hebrews, and he's putting it all together.
Yep.
Okay, I was not listening.
I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask what do you think? What was the question? Like, what do we think the Elohim is, or what do we think the authors think the Elohim is?
I mean, both are great questions, but I'm curious what you guys feel. Like, what do you like, because it's so hard. If you guys have played the game Telephone, right, we know that words get translated and stories get told so differently just based off 5 people
just
right next to each
day.
other.
In
the same day.
Well, that's what this
line
is.
5 people up.
Yes.
Like
that's what language is.
In 10 minutes, it will change, right?
Absolutely.
And so for me, it's more important to like spiritually connect and actually like feel these things, right? Like what feels right. And I think that the Bible is great and it tells us a lot, it teaches us a lot, but I think it's important to really do the inner work and connect outside of all of the programming that we've been given. And so yeah, I'm curious just to go around, like, what do you guys think the Elohim was? Do you think that was it could have been just a general term that has been translated for many different entities, right? And at different periods of time. It could be just the same group of entities that are working as like a federation, whatever you want to call it. What do you guys think?
I'll just give a one-word answer. Olympians.
I'll give
fair enough.
a
That makes
two-word
sense.
answer.
It's the Council of
Jason
Gods.
and the Argonauts.
It's the Council.
I'll give
the Dodonna wood. It's Athena.
I'll take a stab at it. I think the Elohim, have you guys ever heard, I don't have receipts for this. Have you ever heard that there was 7 Elohim? For some reason, I want to say there's
like the 7
Elohim
sages.
and 7.
The 7 sages, yeah.
7 planets.
So
the Pleiadians.
There's so much esoteric things around 7 that, you know, I won't even bother rattling off. But I think there's something to it as far as the emanations go, or you could say as the powers, how mind you can call, which we don't really have a good word. The good word for what I'm trying to describe is the Greek word nous.
You're absolutely
N-O-U-S.
You're on Morgan's path.
We don't have a good translation in English, but what I'm trying to say is how mind, that nous, the divine mind, becomes matter. Somehow written throughout all this stuff, I think there's something to do with the 7 there, and like that's the layers that it takes for mind to evolve into physical matter, or us living
chakras,
things.
yeah.
So yeah, chakras, all of that. So I think that's the Elohim. I don't personally like to buy into the whole other entities trying to control humanity stuff, talking about other worldly entities. I think we're what you could call hermetically sealed. Usually people say like the earth is hermetically sealed. I like to think of it as in like we are hermetically sealed, and we have a choice, if you will, to let negative energies in or not. I don't think there's little ghosts flying around or a little evil spirits flying around trying to do mischief. I think we're protected. I think if they are,
we're Christian,
we're protected from that. We can't see them. Some people claim that they could see them, but that's another story. I can't see them, so I can only speak of what my experience is.
I relate.
The general consensus doesn't like bring that out as like the sky is blue. We all know this, the sky is generally blue, right? So people don't necessarily say like I see entities and that be like a normal thing, or like, if enough people do, then that will happen.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a barrier between us and the spirit realm that I think sometimes can be pierced and can be transversed, but I think that we are sort of protected. And I think when, I do think there are like I think there are intelligent entities outside of our realm. There's so many mythologies behind it. It's kind of hard for me to ignore that idea. Like the jinn are a famous one that's in multiple cultures, and they're said to be able to manipulate our reality but not our memories. And I find that super fascinating, and I kind of see evidence for that, the way that like the Mandela effect is probably one of the better examples, where people remember things differently, but our reality is sort of looking different than how we remember it, right? And so I think there's a lot of evidence for intelligence beyond our realm, and the fact that we are, perhaps that is just the spirits and we are the avatars in this existence. And so there's that transverse of our spirits going to that realm and then coming back, that oscillation. I've often said that I think there's sort of this oscillation at play between the spirit realm and the material realm, and I think sort of the trap is thinking that one is better than the other, because I think we're just sort of oscillating.
We are.
Yeah.
Then you get into actual oscillation, which is like wind, which is a whole different rabbit hole, if you will.
I think that was an excellent question. But Morgan, did you have anything to add to the Elohim talk? Because I have this beautiful weave that I want to share with you guys.
Spirit.
So Holocaust, I looked it up. It means sacrifice. Wikipedia, burnt offering, redirects here for other uses. See burnt offering. A Holocaust is a religious animal sacrifice that is completely consumed by fire. The word derives from the ancient Greek holocaustos, which is used solely for one of the major forms of sacrifice, also known as burnt offering. The etymology and usage, the word Holocaust derives from the Middle English Holocaust, which derived from the Anglo-Norman Holocausti and late Latin holocaustum. Its original root was the neuter form of the ancient Greek holocaustus, holos, whole, kostus, burnt, or keo, I burn, with the use of rough breathing to pronounce the leading H. It goes on to say Greek sacrifice, holokotin, is one of the two chief verbs of Greek sacrifice in which the victim is utterly destroyed and burnt up, as opposed to diushe, to share a meal with the god and one's fellow worshippers. Commensal sacrifice. In the latter, the edible parts of the sacrificed animal were roasted and distributed for festive celebration, whereas the inedible parts were burnt on the altar, those being the god's share. Although not actually obliged to do so, Greeks would rather sacrifice a domestic animal to a god or hero and then proceed to use its flesh as food than simply consume it without a sacrifice, as animals were thought of as sharing in sanctity of life. In addition to their secular usefulness, milk, eggs, and plowing, this did not apply to game, fish, and other seafood, which formed a far larger proportion of the diet than they do today. Fish was the major food source sold in ancient Greek marketplaces, so sacrifice need not be a public function involving priests and altars. They could also be held privately, domestically, or individually. These are the two ideal types of Greek sacrificial ritual. They are appropriate to different divinities, done for different purposes, and conducted by different method. Holocausts are apotropaic rituals intended to appease the spirits of the underworld, including the Greek heroes, who are the spirits of the dead. They also given to dangerous powers such as the Keres, and Hecate. One of the earliest attested holocausts was Xenophon's offering of pigs to Zeus Melchius. Holocausts are conducted at night without wine and offer black-hided animals at low altar with their heads directed downward. And all of these, they are opposed to the commensal sacrifice given to the Olympian gods. This distinction is between extreme types and was somewhat exaggerated in the early 20th century, as by Jane Harrison. Considerable evidence has also been found of commensal sacrifice offered to heroes. So I think that's along the same lines as kind of what we were talking about with the sacrifice and what the Holocaust is, the burnt offerings. And PK, you mentioned Zadok, right? Didn't you say that word? Zadok or Zabak? You say it with a was it with a B?
I said zabah, which was like the root word, or which is the Hebrew word for sacrifice. Zabak. Yeah, that's interesting.
Okay, well,
that's mentioned there.
Zadok HaKohen, also spelled Sadok. Interestingly, he was like a Cohen priest, biblically recorded to be descendant from Eleazar, the son of Aaron. He was the high priest of Israel during the reigns of David and Solomon. He aided King David during the revolt of his son Absalom. Absalom was
Absalom.
subsequently instrumental in bringing Solomon to the throne and officiated at Solomon's coronation after Solomon's building of the first temple in Jerusalem. Zadok was the first high priest to serve here. So Zadok is where the Essenes pick up like their belief system, and part of that belief system is to sacrifice your penis.
Yes, I was just about to say neutering.
Yeah, neutering
a non-fertile cast of social insect.
It's a sacrifice. Yes,
a worker bee.
You're giving yourself up to be directed by God because you no longer have these human things to do here anymore. You're now in His basically command. So I just wanted to bring up this other kind of aspect of sacrifice. Sacrifice doesn't always have to be
great points.
Something to do with the killing of an animal, but usually it's referred to in the subject of God. So just,
Well,
yeah.
Are you able to go back to that page where it's talking about the Holocaust? Because that actually blew my mind. I didn't know really any of that. And it even mentioned the Olympians, right? And that's what you were talking about. Perhaps
I didn't even
Elohim or the Olympians.
Yeah, I didn't even read
that's
this
my whole
before
thing.
I said that.
the idea of sacrificing animals specifically, and people, all of this, that never sat well with me. And I've always sort of theorized that perhaps the Elohim, perhaps these stories of old were not sort of the representatives of the Most High, but were indeed like the fallen, and were entities trying to sort of take advantage and get us to do things for them.
Yes.
And so this kind of where, real quick, let me finish my thought. So this is where my mind goes, right? Because then we have the story of Jesus, which is totally different. He becomes the sacrifice, tells us we no longer need to do that sort of thing. And he tells us to love our enemies, to literally do like the opposite of all that. And so for me, this is like, these are different entities. These are different fruits that we're seeing. And so this is just helping sort of solidify that thought that I've had. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and what I would say to that is this like actually fallen gods, or is this fallen humans putting these like lower vibration ideas onto God so that way they can how do you say like
abstract themselves, like hide themselves from it, sort of.
Or become a god themselves.
Like puppeteer behind the curtain, right? So
like if they're putting it on the gods, like they're saying, well, our God likes sacrifice, so we can do that. So now it's okay for us to do that. Because that's how their culture is anyways, and they're sacrificing things and people and whatnot. So they put those ideas onto their God so that way they can say that it came from God for them to do so. So is it really the gods that are the fallen ones, or is it the humans that are putting those ideas onto God so that way they can have anonymity behind it?
I don't think that people would just be like sacrificing for the fun of it. Like, I think that idea came from somewhere, because it's a pretty grotesque and hard thing to do. And so
would you drink the punch?
Personally, no, I think that
at the Jim Jones Festival.
No, I think that they were doing this in order to connect, like we were talking about the blood being that messenger, right? So if these spirits wanted to connect with this world and they're fallen, they're stuck in that state, the only way they can do that is by getting humans to sacrifice, and they connect with that blood. To kill themselves.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go over this one more time. This is chapter 9, verse 5. And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast I will require it, and at the hand of man, and at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Do you think that maybe people could have taken things out of context and put that onto God themselves because they wanted to have that? Because they wanted to still they wanted to believe that was true. You know what I'm saying? I don't think, because God's to me is blah. I think people make this shit up in their head, but they're putting this idea onto this higher being so that way they can have this idea for themselves because they want it to be true. You see what I'm saying?
Not really. So you're saying they want the idea of like sacrificing their best animal? They want that to be real?
I'm saying when it
Well, it
gets into like
always
the
leads
more
to
like
human sacrifice.
dark area of sacrifices, not like in like I'm sacrificing my animal because I want, to give it to the Most High because, that's part of nature and whatnot. I'm talking about like sacrifices like people would associate with like Moloch and stuff like that, and these dark demon sacrifices. Because even in there where it talked about the Holocaust, it said it was doing this for these heroes or these deities, right? Which were I always forget the word, but sub deities, the
Underworld.
the lower ones. But yeah, they're the lower deities. They're the demons of basically the underworld. So they're doing these sacrifices for those gods that are dead and gone, and now they're in the underworld because they were bad gods to begin with. And so now they're doing sacrifices for them, and they're eating flesh and doing these things that they're not supposed to do, where the other sacrifices seem to be more in ritual, where these ones seem to be more in demonic. Because it even said that they usually took place at night. But I mean, again, that's kind of when you eat dinner. So, I mean, and have festive, because you're usually working during the day or whatnot. So I'm just saying.
Well, so it's interesting to me that the Holocaust is sort of talking about this actual like sacrifice essentially for some sort of spiritual gain or something like that, right? And so we have the actual Holocaust that was ran by Hitler, and we know that he was into very occult practices and all of this magical research and things. So kind of where my mind's going is, well, was he actually trying to make like this crazy sacrifice to appease the Olympians or the underworld gods to get power on Earth? Like that's what I'm thinking happened. And actually seeing it in the actual word just sort of confirms it, that like the etymology behind that is crazy. PK, did you have like a screenshot of something you wanted to share that was relative to this?
Well, yeah, I was just the definition. I finally found the definition of Holocaust from this 1737 encyclopedia. And do you guys want me to read it? I feel like there's it gets into some detail that you just can't really find anywhere on the internet anymore.
Go for it. That'd be great.
All right, I'll read it. And if I mess up, it's because the S's look like F's and all that. It's written, it's the old English. So I'll give it my best. So the Holocaust, the whole and Greek to burn, sacrifice among the Jews, which all was burnt upon the altar, as was their daily sacrifice. The Holocaust was to be a bullock without blemish that was brought to the tabernacle of the congregation. The hands of the person who offered it being laid upon its head was done by way of acknowledgement that all that belonged to him were the effects of the divine bounty. This was killed by the Levites, who sprinkled the blood of it upon the altar, and having taken off the skin, cut it into pieces and laid it on the altar and burnt it for a sweet smelling savor unto the Lord. There was also a libation. I don't know what that means. There was also libation. Yeah. So there's also a libation of wine or drink offering poured out. And while the victim was burning, the music played and the priest offered up a prayer that God would accept the sacrifice. After the temple was built, there were daily offered 2 lambs for a holocaust. The one in the morning before, and the other in the evening after all the other sacrifices. And on the Sabbath day and the new moons, the number was doubled. The holocaust were 2 young bullocks, a ram, 7 lambs, which was done every day during this solemnity of the Passover, and also on the day of Pentecost, and on the Feast of Trumpets, a bullock, a ram, 7 lambs, and a he-goat. The same was also done upon the Day of Atonement. And upon this solemnity, can't say that word. It's like solemnity. The high priest offered, before he entered into the sanctum sanctorum, a bullock for a sin offering, and a ram and a he-goat for a holocaust. And at the Feast of Tabernacles, 70 bullocks were offered during the time of the festival, which lasted 8 days. So there you go. Then with the festival, then one little more paragraph. The heathens were probably, in imitation of the Jews, offered holocaust to their false deities. Here's some bashing of the heathens from this 1737 of their false deities. And the consuming of sacrifices wholly by fire was a general custom till Prometheus, as it is said, brought in the burning of only a part, and keeping the remainder for his own table, which precedent was afterwards followed by others. And that's it.
That's interesting. I like that little
Crazy.
last part about Prometheus too, because he's the one that brought fire. So it's very interesting that they just completely sizzle it.
He opened the portal.
You know what I mean?
Well, what was he saying? That keep some of it for yourself or for him, or what was it? Can you read that part again?
For him, yeah.
Again, that's to me the Olympian sort of warring even, and it's like Prometheus is trying to get his right. Yeah, this is great. I'm learning a lot.
He said, and the consumings. Whoa. Never mind. Oh, I have it here. My computer just glitched out. That was crazy.
Well, it's okay. I think I get the gist of it.
Yeah. We just move on.
But yeah, so I don't know. What do you guys think about the difference between Christ and the Elohim?
I'm kind of
go ahead.
The
Morgan.
eras are confusing. He said that the pagans were watching
Heathens,
Jews.
Right? Mm-hmm. The heathens were sort of doing what the Jews were,
these
just
festivals,
different
and then following what they were doing. So the pagans were doing these festivals after the Jews.
That's what. Okay, yeah. I take this thing. Okay, so this is 1737 encyclopedia. I take this thing, as their history then. So this is who knows, maybe a Jew wrote it who has his we were first, like everyone thinks they're first. America thinks they're first. Italy thinks they're first. Everyone thinks they're first. Maybe it's one of these things that whoever wrote this thinks the heathens copied the Jews, but if you ask
that turns the story. I mean, that literally turns the story, because the festivals are what they're known for and what they were ridiculed for, and what we still do to this day that we don't even know. So this is kind of shocking. Kind of not really, because I have my own theory on where all of this comes from, but I wouldn't be surprised if that were true.
Nomad, your question was, what do we think of Christ and the Elohim? And
Yeah, like, do you guys think they're
I-
sort of the same fruit, like the
Yes.
same of the same tribe, if you will? You do think so?
I think all the gods, right? If Jesus is a god and Yahweh is a god, they're all part of the same fruit. They're all
Yeah,
so the Elohim.
they're working together.
There was like within the council of the Elohim, there was like a chief god. There was a god that made all the decisions. There was like a president, and then his senate or whatnot. And so, in that sense, like I think that Yahweh at some point became the head of the Elohim or that senate, or however you want to look at it. And then his son that was later born was to come down and help, sent down to help people get out of this like decrepitness of death and destruction, and kind of rise up from that. Is kind of like how I see it in the Bible, you know what I mean? From that point of view.
Right. But is that what you feel? Like, is that what you, or is that just based off of like study, right? Because that's what it seems if you just go off of like the Bible and text, right? They try to really connect Jesus with the Old Testament. I think that the more that I study and the more that I just pray and things, it seems like to me Christ is more representative of source, of like the Most High. But I do not get that same energy when I'm reading the stories of Yahweh and of the Elohim.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I feel
Well,
you.
even in my chapter 9, the chapter title is called New World Order. I mean, like, so you have to consider Enoch's whole story as well, and that whole like conspiracy even afterwards, like that's still going on, having to do with all of that brotherhood bullshit. If you really look into it, there was a lot of shady shit going on, and Enoch knew about it, and he is the grandfather of Noah, and Noah knew all of this information. So like there's nothing that these people didn't tell each other. What's in the Bible is like just what is revealed to us.
Right.
Genealogies included.
Another
Life's
interesting thing that
mysteries
stood out to
matter.
me, sort of bringing it back to Genesis 9, one of the things that stood out about what we read, I don't even think we've read the whole passage, so maybe we can move on after this. But there was one part, and I'm trying to find the specific verse, but it was talking about the rainbow, and I guess you have it up here, huh? It said that God is, or the Elohim is putting the rainbow in the sky essentially to remember. As in, like, he doesn't know. He needs to like make sure that when he's going through the different planets or whatever, that this world is like marked differently. It's like it's like a marker of him, like a bookmark almost. That's kind of how I read that. And so to me, again, this is saying like the Elohim are not all knowing. Like they need to actually have like a bookmark so they remember what they sort of were doing here. What do you guys think about that?
Or they're the powers, they're the force that makes that 7-colored spectrum of light, which we call a rainbow.
So in 917, the old hydrologic system, this is like basically in 917 it said this is the sign of the covenant that I have established between myself and every living thing among this earth. So basically what happened is he established a rainbow. So what he did was he changed the hydrologic system of how our planet works.
Yes.
Water, like so that changed at that point.
Yes.
So, and then the vapor canopy theory that, also has to do with that 917. It's a hypothesized stratospheric umbrella of water vapor that enveloped the earth pre-flood, the second day of creation. So there's that theory as well. But what happened was the water system changed.
Can you scroll to 14, Dan?
Yeah, hold on. But think about this for a second. If there is a paradise and it's always sunny all the time, it's always sunny in Philadelphia. Think right now like what the tropical climate is. It rains and then it's hot the next day. It rains, it's hot. It was raining while it's freaking hot. Like Hawaii is, right? Mad. So this is like the tropical system. So if you're in a tropical system where it's hot and then it's raining, the reason why that happens is because the heat from the sun produces heat on the ground and on the water, which creates this water canopy. So that would make sense.
Yes.
And that's why it talks about opening the gates of heaven to flood the earth from above and also from below. So both at the same time, the water inside the earth and the water above it go down together at one time and create this earthly flood.
Right. And I think there are actual reasons why we have the rainbow. There are obviously mechanics involved that had to happen to make that a reality. But what we're reading here is the why behind the rainbow exists. And it's saying so that they remember. If you go down to 14 through 15. And so that's just, well, what, you just think that's random? Like they just put that in there for fun? Or
What,
like, what do you think?
What does it say? Can you scroll down?
It's right here.
It.
It's right here.
Oh,
isn't it? Oh, maybe it's different in mine.
I thought he said 14, 15.
Mine could be different. I'm in the YLT version.
Yeah,
but
it's right here.
It is. Yeah. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the water shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. So that's, I guess, what it says in yours.
And it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud, and I'll remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the water shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. So to me, what it's saying is now the canopy, that because of the tropical kingdom, is gone, and now we're in a different system, a different climate system. Now we have a rainbow. I don't believe that it's saying like I'm marking this with a rainbow so that way you know that I'm never going to flood again. I'm thinking that because all we do now is talk about the next oncoming flood. But so what I'm saying is because the conditions of the environment changed, now we can see that color spectrum when it rains, because
there you go.
Because we have the lower canopy of clouds, they're way lower. Maybe they were once higher at one time, or maybe it was all mist. You see a lot of these like ancient histories about lands of mist and fog and stuff like that. So maybe there's something to do with that. And the reason why we see the colors is because now there's like a green screen behind the rainbow's always there. It's only now that we see it because the clouds are lower. You know what I'm saying? But the color spectrum's always in the sky.
Well, it's after the fall. I mean, the seasons change.
Right.
Like after we keep falling, something changes and everything gets worse. So
right. See what I'm saying, Nomad? You with me? No.
Well, no, I mean, I get what you're saying. And there's mechanics involved. Like there's mechanical reasons for why we see it. And there were things that changed about our environment. Right. I agree that it was all mist and water was coming up from below. I'm just saying, I think that perhaps there was a deeper reason behind why we actually have the rainbow now, not just because it's like cause versus effect, I guess. Like which one was it? Just did it just happen to happen because of the flood, or was there an actual intent behind the rainbow? And the
Right.
rainbow is so mythological. It's known as, Rainbow Road and Mario. I mean, there's so many things, right? It's like it's passed on from day one. We have the Norse mythology of it, being
Rainbow
like the
Bridge.
bridge. What's the term?
Rainbow Bridge.
Bifrost or something.
Yeah, Bifrost Bridge.
And yeah. So you know what I'm saying? So I think that there's importance behind it other than it just being like an effect of our environment changing, I guess is my point.
So is the word firmament around in this section of the Bible? It is certainly, right?
I think
Well, we
in
already
King
passed
James,
that part.
I think in actual Hebrew it's just expanse. I don't know if firmament is actually used. I could be wrong, but based off of my studies, I think that expanse is a better term, but that's just my opinion.
That's what like helped. We went through that when we were talking about like the flood, actually the floodgates opening.
I think it was
like
Genesis chapter 1, actually, when God created the world and the firmament, and he called it the stars, basically.
But anyway, that might not be relevant to your point. Sorry, what were you saying about it?
I just look at the word firmament now with a little bit differently, not as in like glass dome, shaped, we're in a snow globe sort of thing. I look at it a little bit differently, like how we have now come to look at the word government means to govern the mind. How we now look at the word entertainment, it means to hold the mind. So then now let's look at the word firmament. And let's think of the Hermetic philosophy. Let's think of the Hermetic philosophy, all is mind, right? So, and then like we said before, how turning from mind into matter, right? That coming from the nous, that divine mind, and the spirit into form. And now let's look at the word firmament, which might not have been the original word, but just doing a little dissecting. Everything above the firmament is the non-corporeal. It's the mind. It's according to, okay, we're talking Bible here. It's the non-corporeal. Everything below the firmament is this physical place we find ourselves.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that the rainbow it is a symbol of that firmament, of that separation. And you can see what it's saying here is like the connection between me and you, the connection between me and earth, or the covenant between.
That makes sense.
So it's like the rainbow is like
the relation
highlighting. It's the It's like you take a highlighter, highlight the firmament, everything above that non-corporeal, everything below it corporeal.
Yeah, that's a good.
That makes sense. A lot of people have said that in order to like go above the firmament, you have to be like a spirit, essentially. Like I've heard that from numerous people. So that makes sense, sort of, as like the rainbow being that bridge. Like you have to sort of, the chakras or whatever you want to call it, you have to access that spiritual realm in order to be able to ascend, essentially.
I don't want to get too deep on it because I do want to get into this next part. But I always think of like Joachim and Boaz, the two pillars, and how Solomon had to create his temple, and the whole Moses story. And you had to have the two pillars because you had to create that connection to God. So there had to be that thing in between. And I kind of think of that as like the rainbow connecting to the two pillars and creating the archway, which we see the arch and everything.
Was that photo that you had up on Wikipedia? Was that actually displaying that?
I don't know what photo did I have up
on the Holocaust page.
Oh, really?
If you still have it, I think there was like an old depiction of something similar on the top.
Here. Yeah, there is. It says Noah burning offerings on an altar to the Lord. This is by Gerard Hoet, Gerardhoet in 1728. And it has I'm not sure who the center figure is, but he's looking up at the sky, and in the background you see the sun shining through the clouds and a rainbow, and in the deep back it almost looks like I don't know if that's like an ark or a big square house,
Okay.
a barn. I don't know. And then
Yeah,
there's some
I think
burnt
that's because
offerings right
it said
here.
this was Noah. So
Yeah,
this was
there's
Noah, so that's probably the ark, and then we have the the rainbow ark above it. Essentially, is what it looks like. Um, and then and what you were saying about the pillars, if you think about the top of the pillars, they do kind of look like clouds. So that is an interesting point you bring up.
yeah. Um, I don't know if this is Noah. There's three dudes right here, and then there's three girls down here, and then okay, maybe that's his
Ham,
wife.
and Japheth and
Yeah,
his
that must be
wives,
his
and then
wife, and
Noah
then
in the
their
center.
wives, and then his sons. Okay. I was like, there's one too many, but no, that's right. So yeah,
And
this
you
is
have
an
the two
interesting
animals in the
picture
back.
though. Yeah, you got camels,
Yeah.
elephants, reindeer possibly, and horses.
But who is that spreading her arms open like to the altar? Like
Yeah, it's one of the wives.
I think that's
offering
probably
it.
Noah's wife, I would guess, just because
Okay.
the other ones seem more huddled around the
Is that a
brothers.
water pitcher beside her?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
Okay.
maybe. I mean,
yes, it is.
good assumption.
And a
Well,
big
yeah, it's a
cleaver. Look at that
one-handed.
cleaver. Woo!
Yeah. Noah's wife, I think she was a a witch.
Oh yeah, she was.
Just kidding.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. That's
I want to get
blasphemous.
into this next part. This is verse 18 and with Noah's sons. Do you want to read it, Nomad, or I can go, or PK even you can read it too, man. Morgan, anybody?
I'll
No.
go for it.
I
Noah's
like you
sons,
reading.
starting at
Noah's
verse
sons. Yeah.
18.
Yeah, you can read it from
And the
yours
sons of
too.
Noah. Oh yeah, I guess that's true. I'll just read yours here.
Okay.
And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. Noah's shame and Canaan's curse. And Noah began to be an husbandman, and he planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders, and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine, and knew that his younger son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. Shem's blessing and Noah's death. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. Genesis chapter 9.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I think this is very interesting right here. I do want to get into like Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, but it said Noah began to be a husbandman. So this is after the flood, right? And he planted a vineyard. So that took a while. And he drank of wine and was drunken. So it's very interesting. He already knew how to make wine after he
I
got
don't
off the
think
boat.
so.
He already
I
knew.
don't think so because the hydrological system had changed.
Right.
So maybe he was planting grapes and literally doing being fruitful of the earth, literally. And because of the strange fruit on the ground, it is fermented wine.
Fermented.
I mean, well, that's a wild weave right there, Dan.
Because of the blood from the ground that
And
had already
it
been
sort of
shed.
connects you with the spirit realm, right? That's very interesting. They're called spirits. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to think on that one some more. But
It's-
I would be curious to see what the oldest reference is of alcohol, or of wine, I guess specifically, because I feel like there's probably older references, but I'm not sure. And again, though, we're talking about his age, and I like how we talked last week about Epic of Gilgamesh. Noah was also known as like what was it? I don't remember the Utnapishtim, but he was like known as the man who lived forever, essentially. I don't remember the exact terminology, but like he was the immortal man. I think that's what they called him. Yeah, and so sort of my theory on that was because he was like the person of old, he still had that genealogy, that lifespan, that long lifespan. So for the people after the flood, they would have thought that he would live forever because they were dying off while he's still kicking, making wine. You know what I mean? But how do you guys how does that? We have these different stories that sort of confirm each other. Where do you think the other people came from? Like in the Epic of Gilgamesh in Uruk, is that what it was? The city that he was king of?
Yeah.
Where did these people come from? If
They were
Noah was
there.
known, that's what I'm saying. Like, do we think that in a different area they survived still? Or like were these somehow, because if the offspring after Noah, did they just not live as long for some reason? That's what I'm trying to figure out. That doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, it makes sense if it was an environment thing, like the environment was different, and so we lived shorter. 120 years is what God said it would be. But why did Noah still live so long?
Yeah, that's
Well,
kind of
also you
interesting.
have
If it
to
was
think
environment, if it
the
was
essence.
environment,
Well, the environment of Noah was like essentially a scene in nature. Like he came up with the Essenes, probably the first cult ever, other than the Pythagoreans. But Noah definitely, the way that people viewed him, they didn't even take his drunkenness as a sin in the Beit Yeshua Torah assembly. Like when they go over it, they don't even take his drunkenness like as a flaw of his. Like he was just doing what he was supposed to do.
right? Well, what I'm getting at is if Noah was known as the immortal man, and other people in different cultures recognized him as such, why was he living longer after the flood but not other people? Was it perhaps just because he was blessed by God, or do you get what I'm asking?
Well, because of the seed he came from, because they all live that long.
Well, yeah, so I guess, but it seems like after that, people only lived to be 120. So I guess there was just maybe a delay. Or, I don't know.
I think Morgan's onto it right there. The seed was pure. It was closer to God, and
it
then
was
afterwards,
closer to the source.
as it got
Because of
diluted,
the
people
Essene.
started to live shorter lifespans. Because even right here, it does say there are 3 sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. So that means even Gilgamesh came from.
They tilled the soil.
In that sense.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's I guess what I was getting at. So essentially we're saying that Gilgamesh was from Noah, but it was like maybe so long that they just didn't know, or like they forgot.
Yeah, or they kept a strong bloodline, and that's what these deities were. And
it's a story
that strong
about family.
bloodline, the deities kept their strength, but from the other ones they got watered down. Just kind of like how everybody talks about the kingship of England now and how they're all inbred and they keep their their bloodline strong by sleeping with their cousins and sisters and shit.
I think it's quite possible too that all of this is sort of it was originally encoded with like divine mathematics, or what we would call sacred geometry, and these numbers and these names. The Hebrews wrote this stuff quite coded, and gematria was a thing back then. And I think that it's quite possible we've come such a long way that we've lost some of it. It's not as obvious anymore. I have Noah here means rest. Shem means character. Kenan or Yaphet means wonder. Ham means hot. Kenan means lowered. It's like completely different.
Yeah.
Than what it the Hebrew, the original, whatever.
And
I'd
that's
say-
what happens when you translate.
Keep in mind
Mhm.
too that the King James version was possibly edited or even written somewhat by Francis Bacon, who was
Alchemists, yeah.
a king
I think there's a lot encoded for sure.
encoding things. So that's why it's good to read from other books and see what the verbiage that they use in there is, because this one you could definitely say the reason why they structure the sentences this way, in which we talked about it before, there's always like 25 to 28 or 30 lines per chapter. There's no more than that, you know what I mean? So this almost seems like they're keeping in some type of sequential order where they could only put so
lunar
many
calendar.
lines per chapter, and they had to put in whatever they could into that, and that was it. And so a lot of stuff got left out, which is why we went into the book of Enoch and talked into the book of Enoch about kind of this Noah story a little bit, because that brings to light a lot more details of what may have transpired rather than the biblical version, because it's kind of cut and dry. They don't spend too much time on telling you about too much, except for like the things that are important that you need to know, and the rest is kind of like, oh, that we can cut all that stuff out. That
Yeah.
The cuneiform
did-
tablets were only so big, Dan. They could only fit 28 verses on them.
I mean, the Ark of the
Yeah.
Covenant wasn't that big, and they were able to seemingly fit 10 tablets in there. So
That's what
and the
it makes
ark,
me.
the ark
Sorry.
fit millions of animals apparently. So
yeah,
That's what I'm saying. And people.
Yeah,
that's why
it makes
some
me
of this
question the whole thing, though.
that's why I think some of it is mythology. You know, some of it is
Jason
Right.
and the Argonauts.
Right.
of
Yes.
legend. Some of it is true. There's truth in it, but then also like it's covered up with like legends. I think the
it's-
same about Jesus. I think Jesus was a great guy, and he probably wanted people change and everything, but they put this legend on him of being a God man, and then so he became perfect. I highly doubt that he was perfect or actually of some spirit.
So do you believe in other spirits, Dan?
Like I believe in energies, yes. And energy
But
as
not
spirit, you could say.
like
But
sentient energy, I guess you could say.
yeah, I would say dude, ask me tomorrow. I might change my mind. I might
You don't
change my
think
mind.
you think all
the
of the
most real
stories
answer
are just
ever.
made up?
Well, see, like
All of the
spirit.
That's the
interactions
most
of all, not only in mythology but like present day, all of those experiences are just all like mental, just
Well, I think people
not
see.
external entities.
I think people see energy. Yeah, for sure. And I think
energy
people
that's
in their
sentient, that
mind
has choice.
decode that energy how they want to. Yeah, sure.
Do you think
energy
those
that's
energies
sentient.
have choice? Yeah, like they have free will, like they can choose to do things.
No, I think they repeat
No.
their own patterns. In a lot of the ghost stories, like the stomping around and the movements, they seem to stay in that same
Sure,
area. They seem to repeat the same thing over and over. I think they're stuck in a loop, and that energy is stuck there, and so it just keeps continuing in the same loop, because everything within this realm is loops and circles and cyclical. So
yeah, I mean, I think that those exist, but you don't think there's anything outside of that, I guess is my question. Because I agree that those entities exist. Those are more energies that are stuck, or like
I think
remnants of like an archived file. But I think there's also sentient energies outside of our existence.
outside of our
Do you have any first-hand experience with that, Nomad?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it many times, but I've had an encounter with a serpent, a floating serpent, or, we've talked about like perhaps this was where we get the story of Amaruka, the plumed serpent. We see like carvings everywhere, right? And I didn't know any of this until after my trip. I had to do a lot of research. But yeah, essentially I had a floating serpent in my face that was telling me it could give me wisdom and knowledge beyond my wildest dreams.
That was Eve.
I said no and rebuked it in Jesus's name, but essentially that was my whole experience, and it was very vivid. I remember doing a test, like looking to see, like, oh, there's nothing over there. I'd look back and it was still right there, right? And it's like it couldn't harm me, but it could definitely talk to me, and like it had a intelligence about it. It was like we were telepathically connected. And after I said no to it, I had this like vision, this flash of like all of humans' history, from like Adam and Eve to like the Greeks and the Romans and all of this, and how the serpent was sort of manipulating mankind, and giving like advice and wisdom, what I now have come to understand as worthless wisdom. This just to help it sort of have its own agenda met, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
yes, I have
absolutely.
had
That's
quite a
awesome.
crazy experience.
Yeah, I apologize. I have heard that
Was it
story before. Yeah, that's
was it-
profound.
was it drug induced though, or was it just a dream?
Yeah, it was.
Oh
It
yeah.
was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean,
So I mean, take that
Sometimes
for what
that's
you will, but
necessary.
if you're
I
doing
think
drugs to
that
see spirits, are spirits real, or you just have illusions?
well, that's what I'm saying. It was
That's
so
the thing.
it was so external though. Like it was things that I didn't know about. I had to go and research to collaborate to sort of confirm what I like. I didn't know anything about the shapes of serpents. It was so
Right.
specific. It had a diamond shape. I didn't know there were even different shapes of heads. It was like
Diamonds.
green and like brown. So I researched like what kind that was, and it was like, okay, looked like a python. And then there's so many connections to the Greek mythology of the great python being thrown in the
Yeah.
pits by
Yeah.
by Apollo. And then so there's like this crazy connection, and then all of the technology that we have today is pretty much ran off of code that's called Python. And so
Oh, yeah.
it's just like all of these random connections to me that really, it felt very external. And so yeah, you could say it was just a figment of my
Well-
imagination or my brain going crazy, but in my opinion it wasn't. So
In my
Well,
opinion-
technically, you are all figments of my
Right.
imagination, because I'm looking at
Right.
you. We're scrying through black screens.
Yes. Thanks,
And
babe.
yeah, so
Truth.
but we're all within our own vessels. Would you not say that? Like we're
But we
energy
Yeah, but-
share
in our
a
own
collective
But I
avatars.
have the opinion-
consciousness, which is that of Sophia, which is Eve and the serpent that you saw.
it's not pissed.
Well, so what's your point?
I'm hearing voices in my head. I don't know about y'all. Which is it's you guys.
I was like, whoa, what are they saying?
Spirits.
Did you take drugs?
That's why I said whoa when you said like
No, it's you guys. It's you
the
guys.
serpent was saying evil things and fake
Because we're
stories.
scrying.
Because like to me the serpent is
Fake stories.
it's the female goddess. It's the goddess divinity, and it's knowledge. Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, and she gained knowledge from eating that apple, or that so-called apple.
Knowledge
right?
of evil.
Was it evil?
The
It was
knowledge
the
of
knowledge of good
or
and
evil.
evil. Good and evil.
Exactly. So
She now knew what
I
was
think-
the difference between right and wrong. She didn't know that before. Everything was just whatever because we didn't have a consciousness. She brought consciousness into the world, and that's what Sophia is. And the Akashic record is that shared consciousness that we've had
So what's
throughout
so
all
bad
time.
about that?
Nothing's
You would
bad.
just rather
I'm-
be in a
I'm saying
a
nothing's bad
eunuch
about it.
scene, praying to God your rod grows fucking flowers. Like, come
So-
on. Like,
I think that there were two kingdoms, and I think that the serpent, because of pride, the fallen, wanted its own kingdom. The only other kingdom available was evil. When we took of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, we now understand evil. Before that, we didn't. We were just a part of good. God created it, and it was good. That's kind of my perspective on it. And so, yeah, we gained knowledge, we gained wisdom, but I think it was worthless wisdom. I think it was not for our best interest, and I don't think we were just I don't think we were unconscious beings before that. I think we very much had conscious, and we had a choice. We had free will. It was just that we were put in paradise. We were put in God's perfect will, And then the tree of knowledge of good and evil was God's permissible will, saying, if you want to go down that path, you can, but it's not how I intended it. It wasn't part of the perfect plan. And now we're dealing with the ramifications of that.
Yep.
I understand what
We're
you're
always
saying.
dealing with
But
the ramifications.
we came into civilization. I think civilization is the big point of that, is living together and needing tools and needing things to survive, and constantly coming up with inventions and things to keep us occupied and busy. Civilization brings that about. Like, even look at like today with cities, that's where most of like crime and, you know, all these other types of things happen, because people are living so close to each other that it makes people have disharmony in themselves. Being out, that's why you see a lot of people now moving out to places where they're out of society somewhat and can survive on their own. And I think we're making a trend back to that. But is that good though, or is that bad too? Because, you know, there's good and bad aspects to just about everything. So I mean, in a way, I think that if Eve, so-called Eve, didn't necessarily eat from the apple of knowledge to know good and evil, where would we be today? We would just be gnomes in the garden, tilling the land.
We'd be chilling, eating fruit, just playing in the ocean, and not having to do bullshit for somebody else.
I mean, even in the garden.
Do anything to benefit
what if you're
mankind.
playing in the ocean offended me though? You know, would that be? Is that good? I think just saying.
Well,
like,
you wouldn't have to
we were
play
all
in the
good.
ocean. What do you mean?
I don't know. We were all good is such a subjective thing to say. Like it's a like, yeah, it sounds great, but when you think about it, like, what the hell does that mean? Like, what?
I don't think
You know,
we were
what
primal
is
as
that?
fuck.
Primal.
What
Well,
is
for
all
me,
good?
I
We
mean,
were
yeah,
all good.
again, this is personal, right? Like, it's based off
Yes.
of research, it's based off of history. But for me, I have found more peace and comfort when I get closer to the land and closer to sort of doing things to maintain and be stewards of the earth. Like, I think that was our intention. I think that is within us, is to be stewards of the earth, to take care of each other, take care of animals, take care of the earth. And yeah, many people may not like that, and maybe that doesn't sound great to them. I don't know, but I'm just speaking from personal experience. And if we're just chilling, eating fruit, and it's like just growing, and like that sounds like a nice life to me.
Right, but then somebody's gonna come up to you and be like, "Well, your fruit looks better than mine. Your apple is more red. I want your apple. Give it to me now." And you're gonna be like, "But this is my apple, man." And
well, I think it was more abundant and beforehand. I think it was like before the change, before the deluge. Before we were
you don't think
put out of
humans have
Eden.
always been humans? That's why from dust we came, and to dust we shall return. And that was that was the first fall.
Yeah, I think we've had that within us clearly, because we made the choice. That's what I'm saying. So I'm making a choice to get back to how I believe God intended it.
I love that, and I respect that so much.
I love you, Nomad, but you would, just so you know, like a lot of people would think that is very much a pagan way of living also.
Well,
yes,
great.
or
I mean, I don't care what label you put on it. I mean, I think
or communistic.
I think that pagans would disagree with my beliefs, because I believe Jesus Christ is the example of the Most High incarnated on earth. I think he is the only one that we've had that has been a true example. So that's probably where me and the pagans would disagree. I haven't found a better example of how to treat each other on like a selfless level.
Fair enough.
Respect you.
Fair enough. I love you, man.
Okay, I gotta bounce out.
Bye, Morgan. It's great chatting.
Bye, Morgan.
Bye, Morgan.
Peace.
Thank you.
Call me.
I will. Love you, babe.
Love you.
I love you too, Nomad. And I don't want to.
I love you too, Dan. I love you too, PK.
I don't want to like.
Man. I don't want to come across.
I don't want to bash on you
Yeah.
too hard because
Oh,
I
Me
appreciate
neither.
your own.
bring it. Like I don't care.
I appreciate
Y'all
your,
are. I
your
don't even
own.
take it that way at all.
I appreciate your opinion. I feel like we're ganging up on you a little bit, and I kind of don't like it that much. But I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. Well, I love it. I love
you
the
do?
banter. So
Okay. Well,
yeah,
that's
because I'm so
that's fine.
strong in my faith. Like I have nothing. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
great.
Like I think when people get so pushy, it's like they're being pushy about their faith and they're getting like defensive because they like misery loves company. Like they need other people to sort of
Well,
solidify it for them. But I don't feel that way at all. Like I feel so, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, please say
Well, I
anything.
think a lot of people don't understand what it is that they actually believe. So when you question them about their
Right.
beliefs or their ideas, they have a hard time even defending it because they've never even read one chapter of the Bible before, and they proclaim
Right.
themselves to be a Christian. So when you ask them about what it is, or you ask them about why they think that way, and they have no answers, they get pissed off and frustrated and just want to yell at you instead. You know what I mean? And you're confident in
Right.
your
Who
own self
says
because you understand what it is that you believe in because you have read it
what
at the time. So
what
much
authority
praise to you for
says that you have to read the Bible to be a Christian? Like who
I mean,
makes that call?
nobody. But I mean, if you're gonna put some IKEA furniture together, you should probably read the instructions first. Yeah.
That's a fair point. Fair point.
You know, I could be like, hey, I'm Buddhist. I've never read whatever it is that the Buddhists believe in. Like, how can I call myself a Buddhist if I've never even
Yeah,
read
but what if you watched a
Yeah.
bunch of YouTube videos?
Close enough.
then fair enough, dude. Your YouTube Jesus is the man. You know,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, people can go to church and they can listen to the preacher and everything, and they can have their faith and they can have their community and all that stuff, and that's all great. I mean, if that's what they want, that's fine. But like, if you're gonna believe in something wholeheartedly, like, why wouldn't you take the time to read the manual?
Well, okay. Well, here's more my point. Like, there's, you know, how there's the KJV. That's the book you're going to find in church. You know,
Yeah.
Other churches use other Bibles, but you're never going to find the Apocrypha. You're never going to find the old, you know, Nag Hammadi. You're never going to find the old.
I think you're
stuff
even
that's
forbidden to find those things.
Right. And so, you know, what
At
if
least
you read
discouraged.
those books? You know, what if you read those books? Are you a Christian? It's just like to read this Bible that, you know, I have this very interesting PDF. It's titled Old Bibles, and it basically is all about the Bibles that were before the 1611 King James, all the previous ones. And it gets like very hard to read because our English language, literally it changed so much, seemingly just from, you know, 1400 to 1600. It's almost like a new language, it seems like.
Didn't have
so-
Shakespeare's touch on it.
No, not at all. And so these old Bibles, it's just so interesting to see how much they even changed, you know, into the 1611 that we have. And then how the story is that all these other versions of Bibles came from that, you know, and then it leaves out all of these other books. Who knows, you know, that were discovered recently, and relatively speaking, which is kind of sketch, but who cares, because the information is information. It says what it says. You either, you know, take it or leave it. Who cares? Like, you know,
Totally.
if it's sketch where they came from. That's how I feel about it, at least. And
Yeah, no, I agree. Because there's a
Yeah.
lot of wisdom in the Bible, and people try to say that
Absolutely.
it's been manipulated and stuff. And sure, maybe
Doesn't
it has,
matter,
but
right?
like you read
Right.
Proverbs and you'll just be more successful. Like there's just so
Yeah,
much
I
like
agree. I
like
completely
practical
agree.
wisdom in the Bible. So if people were, I mean, and sure, like maybe we've been put on a wrong path or something, but when you find a book and something that resonates with you and it helps you grow, I think that's beneficial overall, and it doesn't matter where it came from or when it came from.
Right. Agreed.
And that's why we're doing this podcast.
And
so thank you, Dan.
And that's why you need to like look into what it says. You need to know what it says. Like what is your
Yeah.
belief based on if you're not actually reading the manual? That's all I'm
And
saying.
I would say meditate on it too, like pray on it. Like when you read something, like really take time to see how it resonates with you. Don't just take it based on the words that it's saying, but like take time to actually like chew on it, right? Like pray about it, like really see how it feels, you know, not
Yeah.
just, oh, this is what it said and it's super old, so it must be fact. You know what I mean?
Well,
That's
even
what's so
to
cool about it. You
yeah, like I was just gonna
you
say, like,
meditate on it, you'll find. Good.
I'm
Go ahead,
sorry.
Dan.
I was just gonna say, even to like read it and then not pray, or to pray and not read it, like you're not like doing the whole. You're not combining all. You're not finishing the task. You know, in
Right.
earlier episodes we talked about like how you finish a task. You come for full circle. You get into your bed, and then when you get out of your bed, if you just leave it a mess, you didn't finish that task. So you have to get into your bed, get out of your bed, make your bed, and return it to where it was in order to finish that task. And if you're not reading what you believe in, or at least following it to its extent, then are you really believing in it, or are you just, is it just a tool just in case? I think a lot of people are somewhat like
Or a label or a way to make yourself feel better. And that's the thing, is like I don't like the sort of fear-based, right? Like some people will use it like, oh, I was told if I don't believe this that I'm going to hell. Or,
Mhm.
you know, like I don't like that methodology. Like I don't think that's really it. Like you should really do the internal work to try to connect with what you believe in, and not just, I don't think we should really make any decisions based off fear. So just a random disclaimer.
Do you believe that there's a hell that one can go when they die?
I mean, yeah, because we have so many example, and hell could be semantics, right? Like I don't know exactly what hell is, but we have so many examples of like near death experiences where they've had like a life review, right? And they saw how they treated everybody. And I think that if you really treated somebody poorly, you're going to experience that and you're going to live through that. What I also believe is that God is a redemptive God. And so I think there's always going to be a way out. I don't think anything is like eternally you're cursed, you'll never have a way back. Like I think there's always a redemption.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Reminds me of law, right? King James and law has a lot to do together, and that'd be there's always a remedy.
Right.
You know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, this was awesome, guys. I gotta get out of here soon, but this has been a really great conversation. Right. PK, I'm glad that you jumped on.
Yeah,
me too. Thanks for the invite. This has been great.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I do remember we're on chapter 9, because I do want to finish this thing about Noah's sons. I know we read it, but there's a lot more in here, especially with this whole Noah got drunk basically and was uncovered within his tent, and Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and went backwards and covered the nakedness of their father. This whole part right here is the big deal, because this is what curses Canaan, because that's the son of Ham. And because Ham saw Noah's nakedness, he cursed his generation. So there's a lot to get into about if there are some sexual acts, if it was the stealing of a garment. I believe Joshua the branch brought up the stealing of the garment, just like in Jacob and Esau, how Jacob took Esau's garment, his hunting coat, and then, he even covered himself to make himself seem like Esau and be hairy unto his father to receive the blessings. So I think there's a lot to uncover still here, because this whole curse thing plays out through pretty much the rest of the Old Testament when it gets into the lineages and everything, and the servitude of the cursed Canaan and the Canaanites, and why the Canaanites were evil and why they were not part of God's plan, and all that other all that other stuff. So I do want to get back into that. But yeah, this was a good episode though. Thanks, PK, for joining us. I appreciate it, man. That was fun.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. And Nomad, you got anything going on you want to share with the people?
You guys can find my podcast, my music, my merch at my website. It's nomad.art, GNOMAD.art. And I'd love to hear from you if you have any comments on what we've talked about or just want to chat about anything else. I love to get other people's opinions and feedback. So please reach out. I love y'all. This has been great.
Excellent. PK, I don't know much about you, bud. You got anything to share?
No, I don't have any plugs or anything. Just want to say I really appreciate the invite, and this was super fun. Kind of love digging into the Bible, into scripture like this, and love to hear different opinions. And you guys were great, so can't thank you enough.
Awesome, man. Yep, this is what we do here. Try to uncover everything that we possibly can, leave no stone unturned, and with the knowledge that we have, obviously. So it's great to hear insight from other people too and bring them in. This is the first time for us, but possibly not the last. So if anybody else wants to join in the fodder, feel free to hit up Nomad or I, and you can reach me on Instagram at DannyNakiDan. But otherwise, thank you all. Love you. Be good out there. Stop deceiving people.
Love y'all. Peace.
I'm regenerating, raising my vibration. Curses ending with my generation. Blessings raining, it's a celebration. Go and tell the nation, we're all saved by grace. And I know I ain't boasting, I've been stuck in my ways, man. I'm regenerating, raising my vibration. Curses ending with my generation. Blessings raining, it's a celebration. Go and tell the nation, we're all saved by grace. And I know I ain't boasting, I've been stuck in my ways, man. I've been stuck in my ways. How many days before it's no longer a phase? God keep giving me grace. I'm giving him thanks, I'm giving him praise. Giving him thanks, I'm giving him praise. I've been stuck in my ways. How many days before it's no longer a phase? God giving me grace. I'm giving him praise, giving him thanks. Giving him praise, I'm giving him thanks. I've been stuck in my ways. How many days before it's no longer a phase? God giving me grace. I'm giving him praise, giving him thanks. Giving him praise, I'm giving him thanks.